This week, the Supreme Court is weighing a case that could redefine presidential power in Washington. At stake, can a president use emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs on nearly every U.S. trading partner, bypassing Congress? President Trump invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, to enact these tariffs in 2025, a move that sparked immediate legal challenges. Historically, IEPA targeted hostile nations, not trade deficits with allies. Lower courts ruled against the administration, setting up this high-stakes showdown. The decision will determine if tariff power stays with Congress or shifts to the president, a ruling that could reshape American trade policy for decades. As oral arguments unfold, the nation watches, knowing the outcome will define the balance of power for generations. In 2025, President Trump declared the massive U.S. trade deficit a national emergency, linking it to the fentanyl crisis and invoking IEPA to impose tariffs up to 50% on imports from major partners. This marked a dramatic shift. IEPA had never been used for broad economic management. The administration argued that economic security is national security, claiming the tariffs could cut the deficit by trillions over a decade. Critics said this was an unprecedented stretch of presidential power, bypassing Congress's role in trade. The tariffs hit everything from coffee beans to car parts, disrupting global supply chains and raising costs for American businesses. While some industries benefited, the scale and scope of these tariffs were unlike anything before. The move set off a legal and political firestorm, with businesses and lawmakers challenging the president's authority. The stage was set for a Supreme Court battle over the limits of executive power. The president's use of IEPA has split the nation. Supporters argue the president needs swift authority to protect American jobs and negotiate tough trade deals. Opponents, a coalition of business groups, lawmakers, and even some Republicans, say the president overstepped as IEPA doesn't mention tariffs and the Constitution gives Congress the power to tax. Business leaders warn the tariffs have created uncertainty, disrupted supply chains, and stalled investment. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce says the unpredictable trade environment has frozen spending. Critics argue the tariffs raise prices for families without reviving manufacturing. The administration insists the pain is worth it for long-term leverage, pointing to new trade deals as proof. The debate has become a test of national strength versus economic stability. Both sides see the Supreme Court's decision as pivotal for the future of American trade. In the Supreme Court, the administration argues IEPA gives the president broad power to act in economic emergencies, including imposing tariffs. They say Congress intended this flexibility, and that the trade deficit and fentanyl crisis justify urgent action. Opponents counter that IEPA never mentions tariffs, and the Constitution reserves tax powers for Congress. They warn that letting the president declare economic emergencies at will would set a dangerous precedent, giving the executive a blank check to tax. The business coalition urges the court to restore the separation of powers and keep tariff authority with Congress. The justices must decide, is this a legitimate use of emergency powers or an unconstitutional grab for legislative authority? The outcome could redraw the boundaries between the branches of government. The tariffs' impact is felt everywhere, from multinational corporations to small businesses and American families. Companies like Learning Resources face millions in new costs, passing them on to consumers. The tariffs have nudged up inflation, making everyday goods more expensive. Importers like Cooperative Coffees have raised prices and taken out loans just to survive. The government collected over $100 billion in tariff revenue in 2025, but a Supreme Court loss could mean massive refunds, with interest. International brands like Swiss chocolatier Camille Bloch have seen profits wiped out by new tariffs, threatening their U.S. presence. The policy meant to protect American industry has created a web of financial pressures rippling from global factories to local stores. The Supreme Court's decision will determine whether these costs and the power to impose them remain. This case is a direct clash between Congress's constitutional power to tax and regulate trade, and the president's authority over foreign policy and national security. The administration argues tariffs are a strategic tool for negotiation, and that IEEPA lets the president act unilaterally in economic crises. Opponents say this stretches executive power too far, letting the president impose taxes without Congress. They want the court to reinforce that only Congress can raise revenue and regulate commerce. The heart of the dispute: who truly controls U.S. trade policy, the legislative branch or the executive? The answer will set a precedent for how America balances speed and accountability in global economic crises. The Supreme Court's ruling will test the very foundation of the separation of powers. The Supreme Court's decision will have sweeping consequences. A win for the administration would expand presidential power, letting future presidents impose tariffs in the name of emergency, making trade policy more volatile and executive-driven. A loss would reaffirm Congress's authority and could force the government to refund billions in tariffs. But the administration has other legal tools to keep tariffs in place, even if IEEPA is off the table. The case forces Americans to ask, who should set the rules for trade? The president, acting quickly, or Congress, acting deliberately? The answer will shape not just the economy, but the balance of power in Washington for years to come. The stakes are high, the outcome uncertain, and the nation is watching. The future of American trade, and the presidency itself, hangs in the balance.